The Senate might have scored a win with the House Salt Caucus following the release of their tax bill. The Senate says that they would keep the House's $40,000 cap, but they would reduce the window for how long that cap lasts to 5 years. After that, it drops back to $10,000. Joining us right now to break this down is New York Republican Congressman Mike Lawler. He's a member of the Salt Caucus. And, Congressman, you've been very outspoken about how you would not support this if they didn't come back with something that looked like the House bill.
Yep.
So it's here, but it's a 5-year window, and then it drops back to $10,000.
Well, what we were able to do was keep the House language intact. What the Senate wanted to do was go down to zero, which was totally unacceptable.
Well,
and we sat down.
That
was what they put in the bill, but they wanted to go down to zero. They wanted to completely eliminate it. We met with the Treasury Secretary, met with the White House, and worked through it to keep the House language intact, but also fix PTET, which was critical for small businesses across the country, many of whom would have gotten hammered had they not been able to deduct their state and local taxes as a pass-through entity. 80% of businesses in this country are small businesses. So we negotiated a deal that kept the House language intact at the $40,000 threshold with a $500,000 income cap and 1% growth. There are other provisions within the tax bill, including no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, that expire in 4 years. It is not unique for a tax provision to expire within the time period of the tax bill. So
but the
we are
reason
going to
you guys
continue.
have so much leverage right now is because if you just wait till the end of the year and nothing gets done, any limit on salt disappears.
We understood that from the beginning, which is why we even got to the negotiating table. But the problem is you would also have the AMT come back in full effect. If the cap on salt expires entirely, the AMT would come back, right? So what you would have is 7 million people caught up in that. That would be a massive tax hike. If we don't pass a tax bill, it'll be the single largest tax hike in American history. And it's not just salt, and it's not just AMT. You look at the standard deduction that was doubled. That would be cut in half. Most people take the standard deduction, so they would be hammered by that. So there were a lot of provisions that we had to evaluate as part of this. But getting to the $40,000 cap, which is a 4X increase over the current $10,000, was critical.
Is the rest of the caucus going along with this? Only because I've seen a comment from Representative Lawler who says, while I support the president's broader agenda, it would be hypercritical for me to back the same unfair $10,000 salt cap I've spent years criticizing. Is he on board?
I'll leave it to him to explain his position. 5 of us have agreed to the deal.
And that's enough to get it back through the House?
On the salt cap, yeah. We agree with it. Yeah. The Senate obviously is working through their vote-a-rama today. We will see, obviously, on Medicaid, on the IRA tax credits. There are a number of provisions that we're all watching closely and see what comes out of it.
You saw what Elon Musk said over the weekend. Yep. He called this bill, quote, utterly insane. He said it will, quote, destroy millions of jobs and, quote, harm our country. Mm-hmm. Would you like to react to that?
Look, I think where he is focused is on the IRA tax credits. Mm-hmm. Obviously, when you look at solar and wind, but solar in particular, that's going to be the fastest energy source to come online in the immediate. It's going to take time to get new natural gas power plants or nuclear power plants online. And so what he is focused...
There's a subsidy of coal here, effectively.
There's a number of subsidies within the tax bill on energy sources across the spectrum. What Elon Musk is really focusing on is solar. And I can tell you from dealing with, for instance, the construction and building trades, they're very concerned about the impact on jobs. These are tens of thousands of jobs across the country. And that's why in the House version of the bill, we worked to phase out the tax credits in a reasonable time frame to keep these projects that are already in place moving forward. I think one of the things we have to see that comes out of the Senate is ultimately what is the final analysis on these tax credits. I know within the House there is a strong contingent of folks, I've been one of them, who have said you can't completely eliminate these all at once. You have to phase it out. You have billions of dollars that have already been spent on these green energy projects. And when we're talking about American energy dominance, when we're talking about, for instance, data centers that are coming online, you need more sources of energy
Would that keep you from voting for the bill, though? Or are you a yes at this point, realizing you may not like everything that's in it?
Look, we are evaluating what the Senate language is. It is very different from what the House version is. I've said on Medicaid, for instance, that we would not take away benefits from eligible recipients. We focused on 3 key areas: eligibility verification, citizenship verification, and work requirements.
Ron Johnson has the new provision that comes through in the Senate bill that does put limits on the extended population for the Affordable Care Act.
This has been a big fight on FMAP, for instance, where they're talking about trying to change FMAP on the expansion population.
Right.
One of the things that I've said to some of my red state colleagues, when you talk about the traditional population, New York gets 51% federal share on traditional. Some of my colleagues in their red states get 60, 70% federal share. If they want to come down to the 51% share, like New York gets, then maybe we talk FMAP. But none of them are ever going to do that to their own states. So when they start trying to go after, a state like New York, that is a major problem. And I've talked about this extensively. We can look at ways to reform Medicaid, but when you start tinkering with FMAP, you are directly impacting folks that are receiving these benefits.
So you're not sure if you're going to vote yes at this point.
I have not made a definitive statement on this. We are looking at what the Senate language is as it pertains. They're going through all their amendments today. Let's see what comes out of this. But I can tell you there are a number of members across the conference that are concerned about the changes the Senate has made.
Can I ask you about New York City?
Sure.
This is your state. It's not your city, but your state. What do you think is going to happen here? And to the extent that, we talked to Bill Daley earlier just about these two choices, maybe it's 3 if you add Cuomo in there. I'm curious, as a Republican, what you think of Eric Adams insofar as there is a view that he is, to some degree, a hostage of this president, given the settlement that he made.
I don't think he's a hostage of the president. I think.
Well, and then just to explain that terminology, the argument is he made this settlement with the president. If he were to go against the president on anything, that at any moment the president could say, you know what, actually that deal we made before, I can put you in. I'm going to prosecute you. I could prosecute you if I want to. And because that is a cloud that hangs over him in this role, there are New Yorkers who I think, not totally incorrectly, say to themselves that they don't like that.
Yeah. Look, obviously the charges were dropped, and we could sit there and argue about the merits of that case.
I'm not even litigating whether the case was worthy or not worthy.
At this point, as far as I'm concerned, we're well past that. This is a choice in November between Zohran Mamdani, an avowed socialist who supports the BDS movement, who wants to arrest foreign leaders with whom he disagrees if they come visit New York, who supports cashless bail and defunding the police, who has called for free busing, government-owned grocery stores, who wants to freeze the rent. This is the financial capital of the world here in New York City. And just the other day, he was asked, do you support capitalism? And he said, no. This is insanity to the highest level. So whatever anybody's thoughts are about Eric Adams, the fact is, New Yorkers are going to have a choice. And the choice is going to be to have a functioning city based on reality and economic realities, or you're going to go towards socialism, which would be an absolute disaster. He was asked again yesterday on Meet the Press whether or not he could denounce, globalize the Intifada.
Yes.
And he refused. And he was given 3 opportunities to do it, and he still couldn't bring himself to do it. This is total insanity, and it is emblematic of why New York leads the nation in outmigration. It's why businesses continue to flee this state in droves, and folks aren't wanting to come here. And frankly, the ones that are coming here are relying heavily on the social safety net, which, by the way, how are you going to pay for that if businesses and the billionaires, which he says he wants to eliminate, leave?